Good evening and welcome to the Clinton Taxpayers Association Morgan School Task Force meeting for the results and conclusions and the work that's been done by the Morgan School Task Force of the CTA. I'm Pam Fritz, I'm president of the Taxpayers Association. I work closely with this group that was formed in December. We spent many hours. We attended all the meetings of the Morgan Building Committee. We researched everything very thoroughly, and I'm going to let Len Freed, our chairman, tell you more about that in a minute. I just want to say a couple of things. If you are not getting information from the Clinton Taxpayers Association, please sign up. We have a sign-up sheet out there. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the many people who have been sending checks to the Clinton Taxpayers Association to support our efforts. We're all volunteer, but obviously it costs money to print signs and papers and reports and everything and do all of that. So we really appreciate your participation. And also, speaking of participation, if any of you want to become more active with the Clinton Taxpayers Association, this organization has grown very rapidly, and we love to, and we welcome you to join us and participate with us. And without any further ado, Len Freed, the chairman of the Clinton Taxpayers Association Morgan School Task Force.
Thanks, Pam. This task force has been operating since about November, so it's been about 4 months. My talk tonight is going to be about 20 minutes, maybe 25 the most, and then we'll open it up to questions. I requested, if you have any questions, please hold them until after I'm done, and then we'll take any type of questions. The mission of the task force was fairly straightforward. Organized a task force composed of diverse taxpayers with a variety of credentials, experience, political persuasions, to collect, analyze, and synthesize the factors relating to Morgan School solutions to try to present a balanced, credible, and objective guide so that voters can make a credible and informed decision. The task force members, I'll just briefly discuss it a little. Kurt Carr has a career of sales and marketing with the Wall Street Journal. Pamela Fritz leads a national optical consulting company. Mark Graveline also owns his own consulting company in technical recruiting. Tony Iagola has an extensive background in education. She was the first lay president of Cabrini College and is now the president of Laurelton Hall, which is a college preparatory high school. Arthur Cover is an expert in advertising research. Elaine Lamely has been vice president of several financial companies, is sales vice president. Tony Pinto is a developer of both commercial and industrial real estate. Leah Sanders, who is representing the PTA, she and her husband own a carpentry business in Clinton, and she's very active in community affairs. And James Staunton is a civil engineer. He was previously the town engineer for East Haven. I'm the least qualified of these people, that's why I'm chairman, and my background is in finance and engineering. I should also say that the results I'm going to show you tonight were a majority of 9-1. Leah Saunders was the dissenting vote, and I'll have something to say about that at the end. Our methodology was basically to get up to speed on all the activities of the Morgan School Building Committee. So we attended all the meetings. There must have been probably 5, or maybe more, maybe 8 or 9 meetings that we attended. We videotaped all these meetings, so if any young members could see them, we could get to see them. We also put the videotapes on YouTube so everybody could see them. We attended all the presentations of the Morgan Building Committee to the boards, to the Board of Finance, to the Board of Selectmen. We obtained all the documents that the Morgan Building Committee commissioned. They commissioned documents from Gil Bain, who's the project manager, from David Thompson, who is the architect for the conceptual drawing. Many of these documents we had to obtain using the Freedom of Information Act, especially the interim documents were not readily obtained. We toured the Morgan School and the Richard site, and also videotaped that, and those are on the Clinton Taxpayers Association website. And finally, we reviewed Clinton socioeconomic data and compared to the shoreline. We reviewed Clinton spending and tax rates, and I'm going to show you that, and compared to the shoreline. And we projected the impact of the mill rate in 2016 and on cost per student. And then we synthesize the data and make recommendations. I need to say one thing. I think the Clinton Tax Association has been criticized for exaggerating data, making up data. I'm going to show you for every piece of data we have what the source was. And if we have projections, I'm going to show you all the assumptions that went into these projections. You may agree or disagree with the assumptions, but they're going to be readily shown to you. First, next 4 charts are just some socioeconomic data showing, the first one shows the change in number of business establishments between 2004 and 9, which is the latest data we have, with the shoreline towns. So you can see Clinton had a 6% decline in business establishments during this period, and you can see the other towns as well, ranging from 5 to -2. The next one is the change in number of paid employees during the same period. Clinton went down 12%. You can see the other towns as well. Change in number of payroll dollars. Again, Clinton's -7%, a couple of towns minus, a couple of plus. And finally, the change, and this goes to 2010, the change in median household income. Clinton was down 1%, most of the other towns were up slightly. I think the message is that all the towns got hurt by the recession. Clinton was hurt worse, hurt more. The next chart shows mill rate, comparing Clinton, Branford, Guilford, Madison, Westbrook, and Elsinore. This is a pretty controversial chart, and I'll talk to it in a minute. So you'll recognize on the left the current Clinton mill rate, 24.92 mils. Okay? And then you can see the other towns. So Clinton compared, and the blue is the most recent mill rate, 2011, 2012. The green is the year before. Okay? So the mitigating factors of something like this, and I've heard most of them, are the following. The biggest one is that when you have a reevaluation, what can happen is, especially if the grandness drops, that drives the bill rate up. And the towns don't all do the reevaluations at the same time, so if you're out of sync, you could look disadvantaged on a chart like that. And Clinton did have a reevaluation, which in 2010, which did affect its 2011-2012 bill rate. The grandness dropped about 10%, and that forced the bill rate to go up. So that's why we put the previous year there, where there was no reevaluation. And you can compare the green to the rest of the towns. And here Clinton is second highest on the shoreline. So the message is, yeah, it's true. You have to be careful when you look at these charts, and you have to be aware of reevaluations. But if you look at the green, you know, we're still high. The other thing you hear is that just because, you know, the building is higher in Clinton, the assessment of a house in Clinton might be less than, say, one in Madison. Right? So you're really not paying more taxes. Right? However, if you compare, for instance, Clinton, and just compare 2010, Clinton to Westbrook, we are 37% higher than mill rate in Westbrook. It's hard to imagine that a house in Clinton is appraised 37% less than Westbrook. So it accounts for something, but it doesn't account for the total difference. Another way to look at it is on this next chart, which shows the median tax compared to the median household income. So this is kind of a painting. So what percentage of your household income are your property taxes? Right. Clinton is 6.8%. So 6.8, on the average, 6.8% of the median house in Clinton of their income is paid for property taxes. Compared, you can see we're second highest on the shoreline. And the difference is not just 1.6% or whatever you see here. For instance, let's say your income was $100,000, just so the math is easy. So in Clinton, you would be paying $6,800 taxes, right? Somebody in Westbrook would be paying $5,300 in taxes, a difference of 28%. Right? So the message, I think, is, yeah, the mill rates are higher in Clinton, and there are some mitigating circumstances, but we shouldn't fool ourselves to think that high mill rates are not bad. And just to illustrate that, what high mill rates do is they depress property values because people don't want to move in and people move out. It also depresses business development. Same reason. Business don't want to move in where they can move in and pay half the taxes in Westbrook, and they move out. That deteriorates the grand list, which in turn raises the mill rate. And you run into a slow kind of death spiral. And on the right is just the opposite of that. The biggest component of the town spending is education. So there's two components, education and town. And education in Clinton is about 70% of the town spending, as you can see. In this particular year, it was, in 2009, it was 72%, second highest on the shoreline. So it's a huge component of the town spending. This drives cost per pupil. So what I'm showing you here is just the cost per pupil. This is just Clinton by year. So it's gone from 12,000 to 54 in that period. This is driven by two things. The education budget has risen and the population has gone down. So the numerator is kind of rising, the denominator is dropping, and that's what's happening. I'll show you, I can show you that here. So that's the enrollment during the same period. And the subset of that is the Morgan enrollment. Now if you compare, I'm sorry. If you compare cost per pupil in Clinton to other shoreline towns, and here we have 2 years. The blue is 2009-10, and the red is 2010-11. You can see that in the latest year, which is red, we have second highest on the shoreline, Westbrook being the highest. And you can see what the other towns look like as well. The State Department of Education breaks districts into different groups, and we are grouped with Old Saybrook and Brantford. Normally for comparison, especially test comparisons, but that's the group basically that we're in. The biggest component or the difference of why we're high or higher than most of the other shoreline towns is healthcare. Jack Lawson said that, and we would verify that as well. We're paying, for whatever reason, we're paying higher healthcare costs than the surrounding towns. We're going to be talking about the Morgan new school, so I'll show you the projected Morgan enrollment. So you can see this is a projected Morgan enrollment out till 2018 or so. So now I'm going to switch horses. I've been talking about the past. Now I'm going to talk about the proposal. Marty, can you hold the question? We're going to ask him at the end. I'll come back to it. So now we're going to talk about the current proposal. A year ago, many of you saw a presentation by the Morgan Building Committee, I think it was January 2011, where they presented a new school for $50 million. And that's what's on the left. At that time, the state share was about 40%. So the bottom blue is the state share, 21 million, and the red was our share, which is 29 million. Then a year later, that has grown to 65 million for a couple of reasons. One is that it's on a new site. On the left was on the existing site, so you got to pay for the new site, even though you save some costs in demolition. Number two is that they've done a much more detailed plan, so basically sharper pencils on the right. And there's been some price escalation in the year that's occurred. So overall, the cost has increased 30%, from 50 to 65 million. However, the state reimbursement rate has gone from 40% to 30%. So that the Clinton share has gone from 29 million to 46 million, up almost 60%. So the overall cost is up 30%, but our share has gone up almost 60%. So we would have to fund with bonding, for instance, almost 46 million or 45 million. The new proposed location for the school, as you might have heard, is the Richards Farm at 71 Killingworth Turnpike, about a quarter mile or so down the road from the existing school. The price that's being asked is $3.7 million. It's composed of two pieces, the land, $2.0 million, and moving the existing structures. There are a lot of greenhouses, etc., $1.7 million. They've had one appraisal already, it's for $2.0 million. It's appraised on the town books for $574,000. In that $65 million, there's a couple of things which we think aren't in there. In the original proposal, in January 2012, the actual price was $68.5 million. And they've whittled out about $4 million, such that the new price is $64.5 million. What's come out is a maintenance building, which was in there at $1.3 million. There's a maintenance building on the existing site. And if you're not going to use the existing site, you've got to put one on a new site. There's some talk that that's too much money, that it's too big, and that may be. So that 1.3 million may come down, but right now it's zero. There were bonding, it costs money to get a $45 million bond. There were bonding expenses in there of $950,000. Those are out. There's also talk that that's too high. But that's what Gilbane put in the original. But the owner's representative was not in the original, but an owner's representative was suggested by someone on the Morgan Building Committee, and Gilbane said it's a very good idea. This is basically an interface between Clinton and the architect and the builder on a daily basis. And I know that several towns have had that, and I think it's necessary. Also, in the original quote was $130,000 for free referendum expenses and a demographic study. And if you add it up, it's about $2.5 million. Other things that could be a problem is there's a couple of existing structures on the site. There's 2 homes. They have to be demolished. That's not in there. The price for those homes to buy them is in there, but not the cost to demolish the homes. It may be necessary to widen Route 81. There's a bridge on there, which may need to be shored up. Right now, it's not capable of handling like an emergency vehicle. And then, of course, in addition to borrowing $45 million, we have to pay interest on that. And the interest on that $45 million over 20 years will be about $18.9 million. So now, and this is, I think, a very key chart. And this is the projection of the building, and I'll go over the assumptions carefully. So on the left is the current mill rate, 24.92. On the right is some of the key assumptions. So what we've assumed, the year-to-year budget increase for the town will be 3.5%. And for the education, which is 70% of the budget, 2%. That gives a weighted average of about 2.5%. So we've assumed about a 2.5% year-to-year budget increase. For the last 5 years, it's averaged 3.7%. So I think it's a relatively modest assumption. Okay? The other key assumption is that the mill rate is actually the budget divided by the grand list. We've assumed that the grand list stays flat over these years. That's a pretty good assumption because the grand list is about $1.5 billion, and it's, in our reevaluation, it doesn't move that much. We also assumed that the actual mill rate is equal to the budget minus any income the town gets plus grants divided by the grant list. And we've assumed that the grants that the town gets, mostly education grants, will also be constant. That's typically in the range of $7 to $8 million. And then on the bottom, well, let me keep going. The bonding base, the school will cost $60.7 million. The school reimbursement rate is $30,000, so that the bonding amount will be about $45.6 million. So that's what we would have to borrow. And the bonding parameters are a rate of 4% for 20 years. Now today you can get about 2.5%. But Kevin Kane, who's the finance director, this is 4 years from now, wants to be conservative, and this is the rate that he told us to use. Hopefully it's lower, it could be higher. The other thing I should say about this chart is, well, let me finish. So then you go, so just the first couple of bars are just that 2.5% increase. There's a little green piece there. That's the effect of Unilever leaving. It's not a big deal. And then if you remember, we borrowed $9.3 million about 3-4 years ago. That's the purple bump you see over there. Not all of it, but some of it. Again, probably not worth pursuing. And then the big orange bump, that's a 2.1 mil increase due to the school. You may have heard Willie Fritz talk about a 1.8 mil increase. I'm not sure what the difference is, but it's not worth arguing about right now. We think of it about a 2 mil increase due to the school. But it's important, I think, not only to look at the 2 mil increase, because if our tax rate right now is the mill rate is the teens, I don't think we'd be here. It's 2 mils on top of a very high base. Such that, if you just go through the math there, you end up with a mill rate of over 31 mils in 5 years, which is a gain of 26%. Now, to be very clear, 2/3 of that gain is just the year-to-year increase in spending, and 1/3 of the gain is the school. And I should make one other point about this. There's nothing in here about eventually a wastewater solution. So we don't know the wastewater. So there's no wastewater spending assumed in here at all. We don't know what it is, but sooner or later, it's going to be a 7-figure expense. The other thing I should say is that when we show in 2006 the effect of a bond, the schools, they've actually moved it in and would like to have it operational by September 2015, so some of that red portion can actually move, and we actually won't hit as one big lump. They'll probably do this in 2 or 3 segments, so it could actually move in from where you see it there. So this is the same kind of thing as what we'll do to cost per pupil. So this is just assuming a 2% increase per year in the education budget, and then the cost of the bond in 2016, as well as the fact that the population of the school is declining during this period, so that affects also the cost per pupil. So the cost per pupil could be, by 2016, over $20,000. Again, if the education budget is less than 2% a year, it'll be better than that. This year it's closer to 1, which is admirable. So the question is, what happens to your taxes? So this graph is for what's called the median home in Clinton, with an appraised value of $286,000 and an assessed value of 70% of that. So the appraised value is $286,000, the assessed value of $200,000. The taxes today would be $49.89. Then they grow by basically 2.5% per year until you get to the school bonding issue. So the taxes basically at the end of 5 years will have gone from $5,000 to $6,200, up 26%. So everybody's taxes will go 26%. The magnitude of the growth, of course, will depend on what your assessment was. I'm going to show you on the next chart. So that's what this chart tries to show. Whoops, sorry. The first one is the example I just showed you. This is the change in taxes between today and 2016 2017. For the house appraised at $286,000, the change will be $1,284 increase, of which $433 is due to the school and $851 is due to the year-to-year budget increase. So basically 1/3 due to the school, 2/3 due to the normal budget increase. A house appraised at $400,000, this is appraised, and the assessed value will be 70% of that. The taxes will go up $1,796, again, $606 to the school. A house appraised at $600,000, the taxes will go up by $2,694. A house appraised at $800,000, $3,593, and a house appraised at $1 million, $4491. And again, about 1/3 due to the school and 2/3 due to the normal tax increase. Again, all based upon the assumptions I showed you on that first floor. Before I really get to the conclusion, I want to clear up a couple of misconceptions that you might have gotten from listening to the New Morgan School Committee. This is a chart from their website, newmorgan.org. It's about a week old, and this is a list of problems with the existing school's location. The first point here, and its current building costs $1 million per year to maintain. Now that's an extremely compelling number. I mean, if it's $1 million a year to pay, that pays for the bond interest, right? The problem is it's not even close to being true. This was challenged by us. Show us the math behind this. It was challenged by Carol Walter at the Board of Selectmen meeting. And if you look today, this is what the website looks like today. In the last 2 or 3 days, it changed. The current building costs $500,000 to $700,000 per year. And we've challenged. This also, in our opinion, is without substance. So we've asked everybody in the Morgan Building Committee, as well as Kevin Kane, the finance director, to show us how you get this number. Because every year there are records of what you spend, and you cannot justify this number. And this, as I said, is the number one book on the job. The other thing on that website is a question and answer. And this is on that website as to what will the impact of my taxes be. Now this, I'm guessing they forgot to update this because it's probably a year old, but what it says is the current projections of the cost of a new building over 30 years are a mill rate of less than 1. Right, so, 1 mil, sorry. Sorry. A mill rate increase of less than 1, right? So this is what people were told a year ago, and now it's double that. Right?
That's 30 years.
What? Yeah,
that's 30 years.
But that's what you're told. You can't get 30 years today. So that's what people were expecting, a mill. Yeah, a lot of things changed. You can't get 30 years. The price went up. The interest went up. Right? So in net, the price of the school went up 30%. Clinton's share went up 55%, and the state impact of the taxpayers went up over 100%, from less than a mil to over 2 mils. Okay, so conclusions and recommendations. Building a new $65 million school combined with historical spending increases, and again, it's worded carefully, will cause taxes to increase 26% over 31 mil. So it's not just the school, it's the school plus historical trends, but I think they're not outlandish. They're at 2.5% per year. The increase in annual taxes from today to 2016 will range from $1,284 for a home appraised at $286,000 to $4,491 for a home appraised at $1 million. This tax could discourage business development and home ownership, which reduces the grand risk, which increases the tax rate, and could result in a slow, accelerating death spiral. And we need to exercise our rights and recommend and demand that the Morgan School look at a minimal amount of spending to upgrade the existing school. Now, what do we mean by that? Unfortunately, I can't be more precise by what we mean by that, because this particular case was never really studied in depth. So what does it really take? What is the minimum we have to do to fix that school? Fix the roof. I've heard everything from we need a new roof tomorrow for $45 million to someone on the Morgan Building Committee, who I think is the most knowledgeable person, who's walked the roof, told me for $100,000 or so he can keep that roof going for another 7 years. What is clear, though, is there's nothing in the budget to fix the roof this year. And Willie Fritz has clearly said that if the referendum passes, they will not put a new roof on for the next 4 years. So there's no imminent need for excessive spending that I can see. So what does it mean? It means fix the roof, whatever that takes. If the locker rooms are shabby, fix the locker rooms, cafeteria, spruce up the cafeteria. I don't know what it takes because it hasn't been studied. But figure out what's the minimum amount to do and spend that money. We cannot afford more than that. And the analogy I would make is a couple, they have a house, it was built in the 50s, it needs repair, it's outdated, it's got linoleum and share carpets, and they go to their financial advisor and he tells them they can't afford it. Not that it wouldn't be nice to have a new house, you just can't afford it. And they say, yeah, but if we don't get it now, the prices are going to rise. In 3 years, it's going to cost more, which is an argument I've heard why we have to do this now. It's irrelevant. You can't afford it. And I just want to follow with the last thought. When I started in the beginning by saying this was a 9-to-1 decision against the school, and when this came out, most people's reaction was, well, tell me something else, was that this is the Clinton Tax Association, this is what we expected. And I can understand that. If I had a handicap, I would have guessed that too. But I can tell you this, that for many of us, and myself included, this was a very tough decision. We admire the work done by the Morgan Building Committee and the dedication to this. I've seen the presentations by Jack Cross, and some of the reasons he has for a new school are pretty compelling. I've seen the conceptual architectural layout, it's pretty clever. We'd love to have a new school. We just feel it's totally unaffordable for Clinton, and we're on a dangerous precipice. And I hope we've at least given you some of those reasons. Some of you helped your understanding of why we believe that. Thanks for your attention. I really appreciate it, and we'll open it up for questions. Just a couple of ground rules on the questions. First, it's really not a ground rule, just a plea. From working on this for 4 months, I know that people are passionate about this on both sides of the equation. Intelligent people who only want the best for Clinton. So I implore you to try to be civil to somebody who's got an opposite view to you. Second request is that you ask questions rather than make position statements. There's a town meeting, actually a week from today, when everybody will be welcome to let their voices heard. But today we'd like to really have your questions. If you could state your name before your question and try to make it brief. I should say one other thing, that this whole meeting is being videotaped from the top there, so if you miss anything, or if you want to tell any of your friends to watch it, they can catch up on it. So at this point, I'd be happy to open it up to questions. Yes?
Hi, my name is Ted Lafreniere. I have actually 2 questions. Number one, you mentioned that spending the last few years has averaged 3.7%. Yet the chart of assumptions that you have is for 2.5% until 2016 and 17. So are you saying that it could be even higher than that if we don't restrain the spending?
Yeah. I mean, we use a number of 2.5% in those projections. The actual spending for the last 5 years has been 3.7. For the last 3 years, right? If I ignore the first 2 years, and if you remember the last 2 or 3 years, the budget's been defeated a couple of times. The spending was the average was 2.7. So we use 2.5. It could be higher. I don't think it'll be low.
Is there a push yet to limit town spending increases over the next few years? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. Obviously, there's several reasons for it. But one of them, I did some research on the internet on Zillow.com, which was a real estate records website, and I'm finding it hard to figure out what this means for an individual homeowner. Because on our street alone this year, on the same street, the taxes range anywhere from a decrease of 0.1% to an increase of 13.7%, and the assessment ranged from a decrease of 10.2% to an increase of 2.2%. How are we to make sense of even a projected mill rate increase when we can't figure out, when I can't figure out from 1 year to the next why my taxes just went up 9%, but the guy across the street or down the street, his taxes went down?
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, theoretically, the assessment shouldn't change until there's a reevaluation, right? Unless somebody challenged there as an assessment, right? Anybody else have any?
So why is the focus on the structure of the building and not the structure of the education, the teachers? The building is insignificant. I mean, children could, get acclimated to their environment. The teachers to be more educated. Why isn't the funds put toward them to educate our children instead of?
I think if Jack was with you, he would say that's going on in parallel, that he's he's doing a lot of things to try to get school graduation rates up. And our focus was we stayed away from that. So we, because no one's really claiming this new building will improve the education. No, I understand that.
You need the basic people, people that are educated on children. That's what we need. Building could be any building, could be anything. Can't hear her back here.
I'm sorry. Well, what she said, by the way, is she said, why does it focus on the building and not the quality of education? Marty.
Lenny, did you look at how many square feet we have per person now at Morgan and how many square feet they're planning to build?
Sure.
It seems to me that they're building a larger palace for in proportion to the number of students, and that maybe if this was only 110,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet, we could have a more acceptable project.
I can
I
answer
think they're making it too grand.
I can answer that. So the state allows so many square feet per student, and for the projected amount of students in that school, they're allowing 110,000 square feet. This is what's called net square feet, not counting the outside walls. This particular building is 127,000 square feet, about 15% more, and the state doesn't reimburse you for that extra 15%. So yeah, the price definitely would be down if it was a smaller. I think what drives it is a larger auditorium and a large gymnasium, which many of the townspeople wanted. I don't think it would change. I think instead of 65 million, maybe the school would be 60 million. To me, it's still unaffordable. Yes.
I have several questions.
Can you say your name? I'm going to give you the microphone.
Nobody else had to say their name, but sure. I don't know if I need a microphone. My name is Kim Buckley. I have lots of questions. Sure. Oh, okay. My first, well, actually, I had a response to the question about the education and the connection to the facility. The New England Association of Schools and Colleges is an accreditation committee. I'm sorry, I'm answering your question. I would hope that you would listen, please. I'm sorry, I'm trying to address your question. The New England Association of Schools and Colleges is the accreditation committee, and they determine whether or not Morgan is an accredited high school. And without accreditation, our students' diplomas are invalidated. And in their most recent study of the current Morgan facility, they wrote in their report that our facility is an impediment to students' education and needs to be updated. And to update that facility,
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
that the current facility is an impediment to our students' education. It's in the report from this association that accredits schools. And there is a school in the state right now that is at risk of losing its accreditation because of the facility. And the cost to update Morgan, which I pulled from past capital projects, things that are in the budget that anyone can look at and see that have been deferred, is approximately $10 million to make those repairs, including security upgrades and the roof. I have an estimate of about $3.5 to replace it. It's a 20-year roof and needs to be replaced. Bleachers, lockers, sidewalks, lavatories, all of those things that have been deferred. It's about $10 million, $9.3 million. And Gilbane did an estimate on code compliance that the school would need, and that is somewhere between $20 to $27 million. So to do nothing will cost the town almost, conservatively, $30 million, and we will still have the same facility. So my question, my first question for the CTA is, you mentioned that business and payroll numbers are declining, and that our brand lists are having issues with keeping businesses in town. So I'd like to know why the CTA opposes the one option that has the potential to increase businesses by the sale of the current Morgan property, bringing a business into town, and bringing in, increasing our payroll, increasing our business, and increasing our brand list. So since that is a concern that the CTA had, that's my first question. If those numbers are declining, why is the CTA opposed to one option that has the potential to increase business and payroll numbers?
Thank you. So let me understand what you just said here. You're saying if we don't upgrade the school, that the accreditation of the high school will be taken away?
We are at risk of losing our
Risk?
Yes.
Okay. You want to answer her? No. I don't want to answer her question. Another question?
Excuse me, can I ask that question? I was at the meeting last week, and I specifically asked the principal, Carrie. My question to her was, my name is Meg Wright, and I was at that meeting last week, and my first question, only question at that meeting, was the concern of the accreditation of Morgan. And I asked about the NIAS study. And I was told by the principal that Morgan was not in jeopardy of losing accreditation due to the condition of the building.
If we do not respond to their recommendations when the next evaluation is, we are at risk. That's what I said. Not currently. That's your response.
If the cost of renovation is $37 million, what is the state reimbursement for that? I believe it's like 46%.
If you made it 110,000 square feet, it could be up to 44%. That's right. But the latest estimate I have on renovation, in the original building report, was between $40 and $50 million, depending on the size of the school. The latest estimate, and I haven't seen the numbers, is $60 million. If it costs $60 million to renovate the school, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you wouldn't ever do that, something like that, because it's $60 million. Now, I haven't seen that number, but the number a year ago was between 40 and 50. The state of Republic.
The state reimbursement for renovation is higher.
I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on.
In order for the state to reimburse anything for renovation, it has to be renovated as new. That $30 million would not be reimbursable by the state at all. They don't see that as they see that as an upgrade, not a renovation. So in order for the state to reimburse for renovation, it's got to be renovated as new, and I believe that number is somewhere around $60 million. Yeah. So that $30 million is not reimbursable. I've been part of the Morgan Building Committee.
I think you're right.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I think you're right. I think the number I have is $60 million. But I also heard, like, I don't know, if you replace the roof, I heard that is reimbursable. Not but a new roof is reimbursable. So I don't think you have to spend $60 million to get a reimbursable. So anyway, yes.
I do have a question at the end, but I wanted to address some of the questions that were raised by you in your presentation. One question, pardon? Yes, I was wondering if everybody could state their name, because not everybody has been doing that. My name is Maria Moran, and you guys say that the building committee claims that the town is currently spending about $700,000 per year of capital expenditures on Morgan. That was the number that you showed on your slide. And you were wondering, right, that's on their website, you were wondering how they came up with that number. The number is derived from both maintenance and capital budgets. The average maintenance and repair from 1985 to the present is $477,000 per year. That's a fact. That's been their average. Capital expenditures for Morgan from 2009 to 2012 were expected to be $3.1 million per year. I became interested in this process last fall, and I found that $8 million had already been earmarked for things that absolutely have to be done. And I wondered, how many more sets of $8 million over the next 20 or 30 years will we spend when we could have had in school? But anyway, the costs were expected to rise further beyond 2012, including a potential 27 to 29 million, which is what Kim spoke about. The estimate of $700,000 per year is actually quite low, considering the 2009 through 2012 average that I just mentioned
and much larger looming future costs, assuming that there's no new facility. So that's how that 700 number comes about. What was the cost of the maintenance facility? Why was the cost of the maintenance facility not in the current plan? Here's the answer to that. It would be cheaper for the maintenance building replacement to be handled outside of the high school project. If included in the project, the cost was estimated at over $1 million. Outside of the project, it can be done for as little as $350,000. Ultimately, the town has identified properties it already owns that may be suitable and would lower that cost. Another question you guys had was what are the bonding expenses and why they were not included in the cost estimate. There will be multiple bond issues and expenses could be less than $100,000 per bond issue. They can easily be covered through the current contingencies included in the price or handled outside of the project, just as the entrance expense is. And a couple more answers to questions that you posed. These are brief. Do they plan on hiring an owner's representative? What will it cost and is it included? Yes, the cost of an owner's representative is included in the design contingency and the building cost estimate. You had a question about the $130,000, why they eliminated the $130,000 in pre-referendum expenses from the cost estimate when you had your slide up of things that have been taken out. How are these costs being accounted for, you wanted to know? They have already been approved by the town and paid for from previous budgets while the study was conducted. You also wondered about the Freedom of Information Act needing to be invoked. The building committee found several items in their estimates that needed to be settled with a better degree of certainty before they could have been made public at the time when the CTA was looking for them to be made public. To date, the cost that they've released is conservatively high since it includes such things as the cost of a self-contained water treatment system that may not be necessary. So that's why Freedom of Information was invoked. They don't release numbers until they're confident of them. CTA was looking for them before they were ready. That's how that happens. And some, people complaining about not having had opportunities for previous input. I think you probably all know, I won't recite them all. There have been many, many meetings, and many of you have been at them, but there have been many, many opportunities for input. It's a bipartisan committee that's been working very hard on this for a number of years. They started as a roof committee. They became a committee that investigated renovation and then building because of all the things that they found along the way. My question is, are you willing to put out some graphs that start at 0? Because your graphs that don't start at 0, any statistics class will pretty much ask you to throw it away and start over again with the graph starting at 0. Are you willing to put out graphs that instead of ending with the highest number being exactly the number that's the highest statistic that you're quoting? In other words, you're going from 5 to 17, and your lowest number is 5, and your highest number is 17, you need to start at 0, and you can't just stop at the top number.
There's a lot of questions. I would say fine. My opinion, first of all, we've been asking for 2 to 3 weeks to show, does somebody show us the 570,000? So I'd like, if you don't mind giving us a copy of your data, so we can validate it. We've been asking everyone for 2 or 3 weeks to show us the data that supports 500 to 700,000 a year. You just talked about some data, just if you could give it to us so we can validate it. Thank you.
Excuse me. Those are all those from past capital reports.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But most of these are capital projects budgeted. These are all Morgan School?
Yes.
Okay.
They're specific to Morgan School.
In my opinion, the 27 million that you're talking about spending and the lack of accreditation is a manipulative scare product. That's not going to happen. I heard your opinion. As far as the Freedom of Information Act, I paid for that as well as the Morgan Building Committee. I have the right to see that, and I think it's a crock that they have against the Freedom of Information Act to get that. Which 20 million? Okay, I'd like to see that. I mean, there's nothing in the budget, in the current budget, 2011 to 2000, I'm sorry, 2012, 2013, where is that money? No, there's nothing in the present budget for these huge expenses. There's a total of $300,000 for maintenance for all 4 schools.
It's not in the present budget
Oh.
because it's put aside.
And you tell me, and the other thing you said is the bonding, I think it was the bonding referendum, the bonding costs were in the contingency, or were you telling me something was in the contingency? No, you said something was in the contingency. What was it?
Owner's right.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The owner's right.
Owner's right, so that was in the contingency. I've never seen the contingency spelled out, and specifically when Gilbane gave their presentation, they said it was not. Somebody asked to put it in. Anyway, I think we spent enough on that. No more, yes, it's John over here.
My name is Paul Wilson. I guess Phil, my name is Coleman Wilson, and I hear a lot of talk about what the state's going to pass, and I wonder why are we that concerned with that? It's our money. And we're going to pay taxes, and we're paying those taxes. So it's not that we're a $45,000 project, it's a $65,000 project, and we're all going to pay for it. There you go.
Didn't share, but in the end, we paid the whole 600, one way or another. Yes, this way. I'm going to give you the microphone.
I'm Ethel Devona. I just have a quick question about how you figure out your tax increases and your percentages, because I'm concerned that are you figuring them on the appraised value or are you figuring them on the assessed value? I wasn't sure. Okay. All right. That's
70%.
So when you're
the appraised value.
right, but when you're saying, you know, if your house is appraised at $1 million,
It's assessed at 700,000.
right, right, but it should be assessed.
No, I'm showing the appraised value because you people know their appraised value. Okay, but they just take 70% of it. That's it. But it was calculated correctly. Then you can check. Yes.
Pat Healy, just have a question. What percentage of the 65 million is the auditorium and the gymnasium? Because if you keep the auditorium and the 2 gymnasiums in Morgan and you build a new high school next to it, my bet is the cost would be significantly less.
That had been researched and looked into and actually presented to the public back in the fall.
And
it was not economically feasible. I believe that it was.
I don't understand why it's not economically feasible to build a smaller school.
You would have known that.
Well, wait a second. I sent a letter to the building committee, never got a response. So I have no idea.
But his question is what percent?
What percent?
Whether it's economically feasible or not, there's got to be an answer. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm sorry.
I have the answer for you.
Just give the percent without a...
Well,
No.
without the space penalty, to renovate.
No, the 65 million. What percentage is the auditorium and the gymnasium?
For the new building,
Yes.
it's a 15% space penalty.
How much? Forget the space penalty. Forget that. I agree with that, gentlemen. All the money's ours.
No, I'm sorry, I guess I'm confused.
The question is, 65 million, what would that 65 million be if the auditorium and the gymnasium weren't in it at all?
What's the square footage comparison?
I don't know if we know the answer.
It's 25,000 square feet.
What's the ratio of square foot of auditorium?
I don't know. 25,000, and the total school is 125,000, so it's...
And so if we're allowed 110, then it must be 100,000.
I think we don't know the answer.
I will take that.
No, I think that's the answer. Okay, yes, gentlemen.
Yeah, Phil Single. I wanted to know if you know if the cost to equip the new school, which could be considerable, kitchen equipment, all the equipment the school needs, labs for the science department, athletic equipment, all the new furniture, all that stuff, is that in their estimate?
Yes, all of those costs, fields, everything.
And I should say, there's a lot of contingency. There's a lot of contingency in the 65 million. I mean, that's not to say it will blow it, but there's a builder's contingency, there's a design contingency, there's an owner's contingency. Yes.
talking about how the mill rate tax rates will be affected. You didn't mention the potential or the sale of the current property and how that you could project out on your graphs. Is there a reason you didn't include that, and had you thought about that? How would that affect my tax rate?
If you heard the question, so there's an intent to sell the property there. There's an intent to sell the property, and at least the anticipated price, but at least the wish-for price is around $5 million. If you got that $5 million, you could think of, instead of needing $65 million, we would need 60. Right? And the mill rate, instead of being 2.1 mils, junk junior school would be around 1.8 mils. The reason I include it, because to me it's a big if. We tried to be conservative on everything here. And just like there's a lot of contingency in the 65, we're conservative in our growth rates. I don't want to basically project over. I think it's a big leap to sell that property. And the other anticipation is then we'll get $500,000 a year in tax revenue. Now that's certainly not going to happen until 2017-18, beyond the realm of that. If we got $500,000 a year, our typical budget's around $40 million. So that would eat into the $40 million, what, 2%? It would certainly be helpful. I think it's a big stretch. Yes.
Okay, my name is Donna Tejan. I was just wondering, what is the timeline from the start to the finish of this building if it goes through? What's the timeline?
You want to answer that?
They anticipate students entering fall of 2015.
Yes. So they would go to state, correct me if I'm wrong, they would try to go to state, submit it to the state June of this year, June 12. It would take to June 13 to get the state approval, right? And then they would start hiring the contractors, right? Yes. And 2 years later, they expect to have the school. This is about a year earlier than they had anticipated about a year ago. But they did this to save some price escalation. It would be another couple of $1 million if they waited another year. Well, yes.
Hi, Carol Walter. I don't have a specific question, but I have a specific concern regarding the budget. And that is the line item that is labeled contingency. And I believe it's 7% or 8% of the project amount. And out of that the other night, just off the top of my head, recalling what they cited coming from that contingency amount was this maintenance shed, which had originally been estimated at $1.3 million. And even if that doesn't happen at 1.3, the cost, I don't know if you're aware, but right now, all maintenance vehicles associated with the Board of Education are housed at Morgan School. And that is an 8,000 square foot area that is used for that. If Morgan School disappears, then that area must be replaced somewhere. The original plan for the new Morgan included a maintenance shed, and they allocated $1.3 million for that. And they have since taken that out of their budget and said that they will find an area at some other school to house the maintenance vehicles and the utensils that they need for that job. And regardless of where they put it and how they house it, there is a cost associated with doing that. They're not just going to go park it in ShopRite parking lot or something like that. There will be a cost associated with that. So I doubt if it's anywhere near $1.3 million. But the cost of that will come from contingency. Also, the bonding package will come from contingency. The other night, last Wednesday night, the meeting at Morgan, they said that each bonding package runs somewhere in the vicinity of $200,000, and they are anticipating at least 2 and maybe 3 bonding packages. So that's $600,000 that would come from contingency. They allowed, I believe it was $280,000 for buying the antique house that's on the property. Well, I had a conversation with the fellow who lives in that house after that meeting, and he has never been approached. He has never been approached by the building committee with an offer to purchase that house. Not only has he not been approached, they haven't considered paying him to move. He just bought the house a year ago and he loves it. And he just went through a process to put an apartment in as well. And he's frankly not interested in selling that. So there are associated costs with that that are unknown. At the Morgan meeting last week, somebody mentioned, won't you have to widen the road there because you will have buses, you will have a lot of traffic. Wouldn't it have to be a 4-lane road? The response was yes, chances are that it will have to be, and there will have to be lights installed, and that will come from contingency. I don't know how much it costs to take a little 2-lane road and make it 4 lanes, but my guess is that's a couple $1 million also. The IT department, the Internet Technology Department that is currently housed at Morgan will not be in the new Morgan. There's no provision to have it there. That will have to be resited somewhere else. That also has costs. That also is listed as a contingency. This owner's representative that was listed here for $360,000, that also would come from contingency. Somebody asked about site preparation because at this point in time, they have not done the borings on that area to determine what the soils are. Now, I don't know if any of you are aware of what happened when they went to put the turf field in at Indian River right up the road, but they encountered a great deal of ledge there, and that is an extremely ledgy area. That money, whatever they determine, is at that site. When it comes time to build this building, will come from contingency. And I don't know if you've ever moved any rocks. If you encounter rocks or anything, that is a very expensive process. And if they only have $8 million for contingency, and just these few things, as well as many other things they mentioned that night, come from that account, I think that you might see the school. Oh, yeah, the question is, how are they going to make this contingency cover all these things?
It's difficult.
Tony Adirola, there were 2 questions. One had to do with the site that the teams are going to play on. Remember, that's the nursery. So there was a lot of concern about pesticides and some of the borings. They had not done level 2. Yes, that's in the contingent. Okay. The question I had is you showed that the demographics are declining, and that's happening in a lot of other schools in Connecticut. But the school is built with 600, and we don't have 600 now. And I'm trying to figure out why, or it's being built around 600. My other question has to do with the issue raised about teaching and what it's going to be like in the years ahead. The scheduling is going to be very different, okay? A very, very different. In fact, all the literature you see on this shows smaller buildings to accommodate that. Changes in the schedules and the impact of online learning.
To answer your question, I think the chart I showed on Morgan's enrollment projected out, I think had the highest number, 593, and I think the school was built for the highest enrollment, somebody could correct me. So basically around 600, I think it was planned, yeah, it goes down there, but they built it to capture that, whatever year that was, they built it to capture it. Anybody, let's see, who hasn't asked a question? Is that? Oh yeah, sorry, I can't see that far back.
Vince Amino. The numbers are pretty scary, and I understand the other side of the argument, whereby, well, it's going to cost X amount of dollars just to do a certain amount of maintenance. But Kim, you mentioned the possible lack of accreditation because of poor status, the poor condition of the building now. But you also mentioned that it's as a result of deferred maintenance and deferred upgrades. Well, I'll tell you that it's a result of deferred maintenance and deferred upgrades. And the most disturbing thing that I heard was, if it gets voted down, the first selectman says, we're not going to repair the roof for the next 4 years either. So basically, you're allowing a building to deteriorate, to force the town to have to make what's a very expensive decision at a very unfortunate time in the local and the state economy. So that's my comment.
John Patrick, I just want to ask how many people in this building tonight are bordering the 71 Kellywood Turnpike property? How many people here are bordering 71 Kellywood Turnpike? Were you notified by the town about this proposal at all? Me neither.
Prior to reading it on the attached? No.
Thank you. It's disturbing. Thank you.
I vote for your and follow up on the gentleman's point about the economy. I haven't heard that. I've also heard that town spending is up 3.7% over the past 3 years. I understand that, you know, we have health insurance issues.
No, you're correct. It was 3.7 over the last 5 years.
Oh, that's
2.7 over the last 3.
Oh, that's
and that's just not town, that's town and education combined.
Okay, gotcha. My point has to do with restrictions on overall spending. In the state of Michigan, for example, where my family has property, property taxes cannot go up more than the consumer price index. The last few years, taxes have gone down. Any of you who has friends or relatives in Florida know that some of them are paying half what they would have paid 6 or 8 years ago in taxes because the valuations have gone down. My question for the CTA is if the residents of this town believe that for the sake of educational quality, community desirability, whatever, that this school is in the town's best interest, what would it take to get a question on a referendum limiting town spending? And would the CTA be interested in pursuing such?
I mean, I can't speak for the CTA, and that's a good question. So basically the question is if we approve the school and spend the $65 million and got some agreement from the town that the town spending wouldn't exceed 2% per year for the next X years, I think we'd have to think about it. And I don't know if you can ever enforce something. I don't know if you can even enforce something like that, even if you pass some kind of, you know, rule or kind of an agreement to do that. But it's worth pondering. I just can't answer it. But I understand the question. Looking at the other way, if the town, this year the education budget is going up 1%, right? And the town maybe 3.7, so maybe they're going to average around 2. If we could keep that up for 4 or 5 years, right, we're going to be in the pack as far as dollars per student and mill rate. And then maybe that's the opportunity to go to school. I'd rather see that because that's a known fact. It's not betting on something that's going to happen. You know, we do it, we show fiscal responsibility, and then down the line we go to a school. Will it be more expensive then? Yes. Anybody who hasn't asked a question, we're not going to take repeats. You have to yes.
My name is John Cisniano, and my question is this. I came here excited to see a presentation on what the task force discovered in their assessment and tour of the Morgan School, and I did not see anything relating to the Morgan School whatsoever. I think that everyone here could assume that if you build a school, taxes will go up, and that's really what we saw. And my question to the CTA is, what was their assessment of the building, and is your recommendation to do nothing or just to put a new roof?
Yeah, I think my recommendation was at the end, to spend a minimum amount of money to upgrade the school. What that means, I cannot tell you, because in my opinion, a thorough upgrade case was never investigated.
But what did you find?
What?
But what did you find?
We didn't investigate the school. Gilbane did. They had several cases. Their case A was to do an upgrade.
But you said in the beginning that you toured the building.
Yeah, we toured. I mean, I'm not an expert on touring the building. My impression, if I was coming into this town from out of state, right, and I wanted to look at schools, I would look at test scores, I would look at college acceptances, I would see what kind of colleges the kids went to, and one of the last things I would do is tour the school. Maybe that's not the way you would do it, but I went to school in Brooklyn and you wouldn't want to see what kind of school it was. So to me, that would be on my priority. If you're getting good test scores and good college acceptances, I'm happy. Anybody who didn't ask a question? Anybody who didn't ask a question? No, sir.
My name is Paul Donusky, 22-year Clinton resident. As I went through the details of the Gilpin assessment, there were a number of things that said, and the way I read the building committee didn't give me an answer was, number one, the assessment said the best cost-effective option for Clinton was to go with D1 or D2 and build a new school on the current site, you know. And they did also say that building a new school on a new site, there's the potential that the town of Clinton wouldn't see a dime from the sale of the old site.
People tried to answer that, and I'm meeting with the state would take that reimbursement. Yes. I think the answer.
Can't hear you.
Well, I'm just going by what the the Gilpin says.
Can't hear the answer.
I'm sorry?
Can't hear the answer.
So his question was, if we sell the site, there was some talk that Clinton wouldn't get that money, the state would just subtract the sale of the site from the reimbursement. So if they're going to reimburse you $20 million and sell for $5 million, now you only get 15, so you got nothing out of it. I understand that's not true.
It's not.
From what I've heard, the president. Okay, somebody over there maybe.
I won't need the mic.
What?
I won't need the mic. My name is Art Keever.
No, are you answering his question?
Oh, no, I don't want to answer his question.
I don't think you can answer your question?
The building committee
Okay.
confirmed that that's not.
I can't verify it, because it's certain several sources.
The building committee verified that it should not be taken out. Their answer is correct. From the state, yes.
Hi, my name is Art Keever. I was at the other meeting. Again, 75 people here. There's only 75 or 100 at the other meeting. Either way you vote, we need to get more people to come to these meetings. I hope you have more than just this one, so everybody can hear both sides of the argument. I think somewhere in between lies the answer, but anyhow. I do have a question for you, unlike the other night. You say that Morgan enrollment is going to go down and it's continue to go down, but why? Why is everybody getting through Elliott, Joel, Pearson, getting to Elliott, and then leaving Morgan? Why? No, why do they need Morgan? They're already in the town. They're going through our school system, but when they get to Morgan, where do they go? Where do they go? They go to private school? Why? And why do they go to private school? I'm not saying, if you're saying the enrollment's going down, but every other school is going
Well,
up.
that could be because of population. I mean,
People are just leaving the town of Clinton? Oh, okay. Like I said, there's a lot of assumptions being made on both sides about numbers, but...
Well, there's no assumption. That's the projected population behind it.
Yeah, the assumptions that you're making on here seem to be assumptions.
No, that was given to us by the Board of Education.
Not so much on the but...
No, I think, yes, we have a long way to question.
When you use your comparisons in taxes and mill rates, you use towns like Guilford, Madison, the surrounding shoreline towns, but you didn't explain to anybody about demographic reference groups and how that plays into education, in funding, in test scores, in the way kids learn. So my question is, why are you comparing Clinton to Guilford and Madison when they're not in the same dirt? And I'll just give you an example. Clinton is in the same dirt as East Lyme, Waterford, Milford. Guilford and Madison are in the same dirt as Greenwich.
There's also in the same group as Branford and Old Saybrook.
Well, I didn't mention those because I know they were...
Okay, so we compare all the shoreline times, two are in the same group, and two are not. Plus, it's not clear to me why. I think so, because I'm not sure cost per student. I understand test scores, I'm not sure cost per student is relevant. Now you answer to it. This gentleman wants.
Well, I just had a couple of other. Okay. As I've been reading some of the recent arguments about the new site, I disagree with some of them. You know, I disagree with the argument that the new site will be a safer traffic area, traffic flow. The 4 traffic lights within a third of a mile of the current site. You know. All right, it's not a question. I'm just making a point.
Remember my comment. Remember my comment about civility. Okay, so it's question to be worded a question. You know, why are you saying it's safer? Right? I mean, you can always do it. We got the point. Do you have another point? Oh, the point is one of the reasons putting the school where it is now, or the library was now because it's across from the school, and now it's not going to be across. I'm going to cut it off with really 1 or 2 more questions, if you don't mind. This woman right over here. This is going to be our last question.
My name is Peggy Adler. I just want to know, my understanding is that the only road in the Richards property over the Indian River is a dirt road over a culvert. And I wanted to know how the students are going to safely get from the front of the property to the back of the property to the Peters complex if the only road currently is a dirt road over a culvert over the Indian River.
I can't answer that.
It's included in the design.
It's in the design.
A roadway. In the design is a roadway that allows for emergency vehicles and students to make that trip. It's included in the design.
Has it been approved by the Army Corps of Engineers?
I don't know the answer to that one, Peggy. I just know that it is included in the design.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to wrap it up. I'd like to thank all of you for your attention. I know this is a passionate issue. I appreciate your attention and being civil, and I hope you got a good understanding at least what the CTA position is. Thank you very much.
Our website is gocta.org. So we'd very much like to have you go there. If you'd like to sign up for our newsletter,